a Libertarian for U.S. Congress in Texas's 2nd District, which encompasses part of Houston, gerrymandered very creatively here by the Republicans and Democrats to serve their purposes. So we are going to jump right over here into it. And Elliott, I'm going to let you start right off and introduce yourself, who you are, why you're running, and why don't you start with something that's important to you for you and your constituents.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate you having me today. My name is Elliott Scheirman, and as you said, I am running for Congress in Texas' 2nd District as a Libertarian on the ballot. Actually, what really caused me to initially run was I noticed last year that Dan Crenshaw was starting to make some waves in as in the House, and we were all really optimistic about him. He seemed like a great guy, and he would be one of those Liberty Ally Republicans that we have out there, a couple of them. And then he immediately started talking about red flag laws. And then he immediately started supporting the Patriot Act and also co-sponsoring the CARES Act, which added trillions of dollars in deficit spending. So I think we realized that he's not what we hoped. And I wanted to step up and run against that, just so voters in District 2 would have an option to actually have someone who supports what they care about.
Dan, it was Dan's first term, right? And Correct. He was one of those people. He presented himself as being, an ally of small government things, and immediately drank the Kool-Aid of big government when he got in there, basically, is what you're saying. Absolutely. Okay. So what types of legislation has he supported? You mentioned red flag laws that he has come out for. What sort of things has he come out for in Texas and nationally that you would have not done had you been representing your district?
Well, I touched on this a second ago, but he actually supports the Patriot Act, which allows warrantless spying on U.S. citizens. That is an extreme violation of the Fourth Amendment. So far, he's 0 for 2. And as a matter of fact, red flag laws also violate the Fifth Amendment. So that's 0 for 3. He did pretend that he was going to be a fiscal conservative and does tweet a lot about opposing socialism. But like I said, he signed on. We got some friends in the background there.
My son's excited too. Sorry.
So he did sign on for the CARES Act, and that's trillions and trillions of dollars in deficit spending, which you can make an argument for helping people out, but not when it's going to cost taxpayers $6,000 a piece for a $1,200 payment. That's just fiscal insanity.
Yes, it's quite insane. Oh boy. I apologize for that. I'm
not a problem. Do you want to do a restart?
No, we are live. It's too late to restart. There is no restarting. Things happen when you're live. I forgot to turn on Do Not Disturb. My brother tried calling me. So that's the way that goes. That's the story of live. There is no restart. So anyway, back to that. You're talking about the Patriot Act and general infringements on the government. So what sort of things I know getting in Congress is always going to be a challenge for any libertarian, let alone once we get in there, finding legislation we can find common ground on. Right now, I know Justin Amash has introduced the Ending Qualified Immunity Act, and prior to even the recent discussions going on, I know you were advocating for similar criminal justice reforms. What sort of policies do you think we could find common ground on in that realm? In Congress.
It's a really important issue right now, and I think that it has a lot of ability for not just bipartisan, but tripartisan support amongst Libertarians, Democrats, and Republicans, and even independents who are tired of seeing, the people of this country abused by the people, the police who are supposed to be protecting them. With ending qualified immunity, there's also the option to add carrying professional liability license for any law enforcement officer. This would shift the burden to a free market solution to help self-correct bad apples and not rely on cops turning in their buddies as a form of self-policing. So if a cop becomes, if they have issues where they are being, brutalizing citizens or worse, killing them, then it becomes financially impossible for them to continue being cops. So that's one other idea in addition to the ending qualified immunity.
I know a lot of people bring up some concerns in that line there that they'd be concerned about frivolous lawsuits, that it would become, if a police officer bumped into someone, that they'd be open for lawsuits, and that's what qualified immunity is there to protect. I don't think that's the case in any proposals out there. How do you see where the line is on, protecting against frivolous actions?
Well, I think that opens up a whole other can of worms, but I'm if we're going to talk about frivolous lawsuits, then absolutely tort reform would go a long way to head that off, as well as solve a lot of other problems that affect people who are just trying to do the right thing and get food on the family for their get food on the table for their family rather. So tort reform would absolutely help solve that. However, I'm not one of the kind of politicians who wants to stuff every little bit into a piece of legislation. I prefer for bills to stand on their own merit. And I don't like riders. I don't think that we should have anything like poison pills that politicians insert into legislation that would otherwise pass, but their party somehow then becomes obligated to vote against it. So I feel like if you have legislation where individual ideas are weighed on their merits, then you get rid of a lot of the nonsense that we see in our government today.
Wow, that's way too much common sense for Congress. I wish you luck, but I don't know if anyone can tolerate that much common sense in Congress. But I think that's single issue voting, or at least focused voting, not having 10,000 page bills that no one reads and no one's allowed to debate on the floor, is not our way forward for freedom. And that's what we're getting when we continuously vote for Republicans and Democrats. So some of the other things I think that you've talked about, and I think that is really relative, and you've introduced a ballot drop-off proposal for the election for solving the COVID-19 crisis and voting in Texas. Is that something you want to elaborate on a little bit?
Certainly. It's something I'm really passionate about, especially right now. We've got Texas is one of the highest states spiking right now in new recorded cases, and our medical centers are becoming overwhelmed, despite what the propaganda says. It's not going away. That being said, if I can't think of any single more riskier opportunity to catch the coronavirus than standing in a long line with a lot of people and touching something that all of those people have been touching. So voting in itself seems like it's going to be pretty inherently risky when it comes to viral transmission. You'd have to hope that each voter booth is sanitized between users. You'd have to make sure that the lines are spread out so that everyone's got their correct spacing. And also, Texas just passed getting rid of straight ticket voting, which is good for libertarians down ticket, but it's bad for public safety when you want, when you have slowdowns for the voting like that. So that being said, the idea was posed for mail-in ballots for people to help keep them safe, but there was a big concern about voter integrity with that, and that there would be a lot more voter fraud since there's no one able to physically verify who's sending in the ballot. So my idea is actually strikes a balance between those two, weighing the concerns about whether or not it's safe to go vote, and also whether or not you are legitimately voting without any fraud. So Texas actually has a vehicle registration distribution network through grocery stores, which is super convenient. You can just go to your local grocery store and pay your annual fine to the state so that you can get your sticker on your car. And that distribution network could be easily adapted to allow voters to present their voter registration, get personalized ballots printed off, and then have up to a month before early voting to research candidates all the way down the ballot. I know it seems a little unprecedented for people to know what they're voting for, but
so many people don't when they walk into so many people don't know what's on their ballot when they walk in. It's
most
so
people
frustrating.
Just pick the letter next to the name, and in nonpartisan races, they pick the name that sounds the best to them. Yep. So that's a separate problem, but this is a tangential benefit for that. So whenever people would drop off the ballots here in Texas, you're required to show your voter registration card and provide your signature when you vote. You can still do that when you drop off. So all of the verification is still there in place in person, but you don't have to wait in line. You could have a drive-up situation where people can hand it in and sign a clipboard right there from their car without even having to get out. However, Texas, in all of its infinite wisdom, the legislation only meets once every 2 years, and it is not currently in session. So what I'm calling on Texas legislators to do is call an emergency session of Congress. This is one of those circumstances where it makes sense to call an emergency session, pass this common sense solution, and allow people to vote safely without worrying about disenfranchising voters, and also without worrying about voter fraud. You can find the information for the details on that at my website, ScheirmanForCongress.com. And there's a tab dedicated to that that's called Safe Voter Drop-Off.
And the link for your website is in the description of the video here on every platform. So everyone should definitely be going and checking out Dan's website. Also, don't forget to hit the donate button. I was looking. You are running against... Did I drop out?
Your screen is black right now on my end. But I can still hear you.
Okay, that was weird.
There we go.
Still learning. Mistakes happen. Like I said. Sorry. Bring you on here and then my technology
No problem. We're just having a conversation.
It's the way it goes. So anyway, I was talking about donations. I was looking, your race is one of those toss-up races due to the way it's been gerrymandered, as we showed here at the beginning. For people to look here, you can see the way this district is formatted. I'm not sure how that makes sense, that is the cohesive set of voters that should be represented together, but that's what you got there. So it's also one of the most heavily funded races in Texas.
Yeah, it really is.
What do you need to compete?
Well, if I'm going to compete financially, I need millions and millions of dollars, because that's what the GOP has put behind Dan Crenshaw right now. In fact, it appears that they are grooming him for a 2024 presidential run. So allowing and helping me topple him could actually change history for this entire country.
It's an important race.
Yes.
It's a huge race that you can be stronger on the Second Amendment. And then you're also in a prime location to present libertarian solutions for immigration, and being in Texas and in Houston. What sort of proposals would you put forth as a Texan for immigration solutions?
Great question. And one thing that really drives me and is just I'm very passionate about is we have to get these kids out of cages. This is the most inhumane thing of our time that our government is doing. We need to get these kids out of cages. If your parents crossed a border illegally, we can sort that out, but get the kids out of cages, stop separating them from their families. From a practical policy standpoint, my plan is to allow immigrants who are here illegally to sign up for guest worker passes. This would allow them to be contributing members of society, not have to fear for their lives about being carted off in the middle of the night, or if they get pulled over for a busted taillight and losing everything. And it would allow us to be a more free market system if we can welcome people who want to work, who have job offers, who have American business owners willing to hire them, and then they can come out of the shadows and not be second-class people. They can be guest workers. That doesn't necessarily mean they have to immediately become citizens. We can sort out a clear, streamlined path to citizenship if they want it. But imagine if you got a job offer in France and you wanted to pack up your family and move over there, and you got over there only to find out that you got stopped at the airport and they said, sorry, no immigrants. And it would just be ridiculous. You're like, I have an employer who's ready to take me on. I'm trying to make life better for my family. Why is the government involved in this situation at all?
And a lot of people talk about the people who have come in illegally shouldn't skip the line. Well, why is there such a line that takes years and years to begin with? That's why we have people skipping the line, because they don't see another option. If you were told it's going to be a 20-year wait in line, well, what are you going to do for the next 20 years if you're looking at how you're going to feed your family?
Apparently families need to eat at some point over 20 years. So the line is ridiculous. And my solution to that is make it streamlined, and then anyone who's worried about illegal immigrants won't have to be worried anymore, because they're not illegal. They are here legally recognized as guest workers. And as I said, they would contribute into our systems. They would not be eligible for welfare, like recent immigrants are already not eligible. And it would cut out a lot of the inhumanity that we're seeing as a response to people who are literally just trying to follow the American dream.
And that's what it's presented all over the world, that this is a place where people can make their own from nothing. And that's why they do come here. You talked about, being a productive member of society and taxes. I think you had, I was reading something, you've proposed some sort of proposal for eliminating overtime taxes entirely as first step in tax reduction.
Correct.
Obviously, maybe getting to zero eventually, but as a step of eliminating that. Could you elaborate on the overtime tax proposal?
Sure. And this isn't something I want to wait until I'm sworn in January of 21 to do. This is something Congress can take my idea and run with it now. Ending overtime taxes would allow a struggling economy of American workers trying to rebuild after the government has shut everything down, and allow them to work these overtime hours free and clear of government taxation. This would reward hard work, which is exactly what we should be doing, especially when we have had such a shutdown like this. We need to get things back on track, and there's nothing that'll do it faster than motivating people to work longer and work more. Now, obviously, this would be a voluntary thing. I'm not trying to tell people that they don't work enough if they're working 40 hours. But for the for the millions of Americans who do work overtime, they should be rewarded for that. And I think that this is a slam dunk. There's no argument against it, other than someone who wants to claim that the government doesn't have enough money. Which, good luck making that argument.
Yeah, right now they seem to think they can just print it. So, at some point there's got to be a conversation about, how much are we taking from people if we're just printing it and devaluating the money in the first place. So another thing, obviously talking about crime, different reforms, you're definitely an advocate of legalization and decriminalization of marijuana and other drugs in Texas. And
absolutely.
Moving in that direction.
Well, in a recent poll, 71% of Texans were in favor of legal marijuana. That I feel like I just need to go show every Texas politician or anyone who is trying to get it legalized nationally that stat, and it's a slam dunk vote. Yes, the people overwhelmingly want it. Just in Texas alone, it would add tens of thousands of jobs, up to $3 billion in Texan revenue. I'm not talking about tax revenue. I'm talking about Texan revenue. People who want to invest in jobs here in Texas, $3 billion. And nationwide, I've seen reports that if we decriminalize it nationwide, that it would be up to over 1 million jobs created just in that first year alone. That's huge. And this is a recession-proof industry. This is a slam dunk thing that people want. It's going to create economic activity. It's going to create opportunity. And we need that right now with the economy in the dumps like it is.
I think anything that can boost the economy, taking anything that's in the black market right now and moving it into the light, can allow market solutions to solve the problems that are caused by it being a black market.
I would agree with that, as long as it's involving consent. We don't want to end up like the Epstein Island here.
Yes, absolutely. Consenting adults is a critical aspect of that. And I think that anytime consenting adults are performing any activity, if they have the ability to hold the other person accountable for force and fraud, it allows there to be more transparency and safer transactions for anyone. Because Absolutely. If it's in a black market, you can't go get help to hold the person accountable that is trying to hurt you. So I think anything that can be more transparent is the best way to protect and keep people safe. So one of the things that people always ask me is, what can they do to get involved in the Libertarian Party? What can they do to make a difference in the whole movement together? So what advice would you what advice would you give someone who's just wanting to get involved and get started, as far as, involved in their local affiliate and getting those grassroots campaigns going?
Grassroots is, I'm glad you said that. That is the exact thing to do to get involved. The party does have conventions every 2 years where you can maybe start to get involved with local leadership positions and stuff. I wouldn't say start there. I would just say start, donating to the party, whether you're local, state, or national. Those donations help make us a more legitimate rival to the other parties, and it helps us a lot when it comes time to fight for things like ballot access, where the old parties conspire together to help try to keep us off the ballot and off the debate stages whenever they can. That being said, there is a grassroots movement that I've recently discovered called Let Her Speak, directly in reference to helping the Jo Jorgensen campaign and getting her on the debate stage with Trump and Biden, so that American voters have the opportunity to hear these great ideas she has that none of the media is covering her. The way to get plugged into that is with let-her-speak.org. You can also find it under Let Her Speak on Facebook for the planning groups. And they're actually assembling a peaceful protest safe convoy nationwide on August 8th. And you can sign up if you want to be one of your local hosts for that, or you can get plugged in with someone who's already done the planning for your local area. There are people who've signed up from almost all 50 states right now, and the idea is to just have it so that the media can't ignore us. So the idea is decorating your cars or bicycles or whatever you have, meeting at a pre-established point, and then just having a parade. You can get help from your local police if you want. Typically, the cost to do that is a couple $100s for some escorts, just police escorts, so that you don't get any traffic fines or something for doing that. But the idea is make it so that we are not ignorable to the media. And again, that is let-her-speak.org. And that is the exact kind of example of grassroots organization. This is not funded by any campaign. This is people who are just motivated volunteers who give a damn, and they wanted to show up and they want to see Joe, contrasted against the terrible offerings of the other parties. So again, if you're interested, dip your toe in with some grassroots activism and stuff like that. Pick a candidate you like, donate, offer to help volunteer. I've got several stacks of these flyers that need to end up on, in people's mailboxes. If you want to help me drop them and walk some of these neighborhoods, if you're local to Houston, that's the kind of stuff where it's going to make a difference. It takes, in marketing, they say it takes up to 7 touch points for a person to even recognize a brand. So when you're talking about smaller party politics and grassroots stuff, you have to be out there all the time. You have to be in their faces. They have to see you online. They have to see you in their mailbox, and they have to see your signs out in their neighborhoods.
And one of the things too that's great about getting involved in a grassroots movement like that out there is that you get around other people and you can start talking about liberty instead of just, posting on Facebook about it. When you can actually talk to other people and you see people that are like, we're passionate about it. And Robert Perry put it really great yesterday when I was talking with him, that when you're around other people, you start thinking like, wow, wouldn't it be great if every city was like this, or every town or every country, and like it fuels your passion when you're around other people.
It certainly does. In fact, here in Houston, we host a local happy hour every month, and I believe that's on hold this summer. But generally, it gives us a chance. We're not talking about, there's no business agenda. It's just people getting to know each other better, so that, hey, if you know people, you're more likely to show up and volunteer for something. You're more likely to volunteer and take on something of your own that you'll be recruiting other people to volunteer for. And it's a way to build a community, which is what libertarians care about, is voluntarily working together to help others. So
absolutely. Well, I think we're coming up here on about half an hour. I tend to try and keep them about this long right now. So if you had any closing remarks, any last minute things you'd want to tell everyone about your campaign, any last minute things, let's hear it right now.
I really appreciate you having me on, Ryan. If you are interested, please follow me on social media. It's going to be Scheirman for Congress is the keyword to search. And as you can see over my shoulder, it's not easy to spell. It's SCHEIRMAN. I'm on Twitter at Vote Scheirman, and on Instagram at Scheirman for Congress as well. And as you can see, also, my website is ScheirmanForCongress.com. You can find out a lot of information on the issues, the policy stances I have. You can see some other interviews that I've done there. I got to do one with Larry Sharp a little while ago. That was fun.
Oh, and, that's good.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, I love Larry.
If you can't contribute right now, I know times are tough, and don't stretch anything that you can't afford. But if you want to sign up and volunteer, I do have. I am empowering people to help. Just constantly like and share my content so that more people can see it in a more organic reach, in addition to some of the paid advertising that I'm doing for my district. So anything you can do to help is appreciated. And if you see other libertarian candidates, help them out too. I'm not the only one out there fighting the good fight. That's
right. Everyone's been making Jorgensen memes. There's lots of candidates to make memes for in all of your local states. And you can have all sorts of fun with that, people out there, Well, Elliott, I really appreciate you coming on here to help share your message.
I have one last thing to say. If you are going to be making memes for my campaign, please keep it respectful and don't make fun of anyone's disability. That's all I ask.
That's important, and being respectful is always important when people are making memes. It's something that we should keep in mind always.
All right. Well, thanks so much for having me, Ryan. I really appreciate it.
Elliott, thank you for being on, and good luck in your race. Thank you.
Thank you so much.